Now, the cat is out of the bag. Deutsche Telekom is using surplus energy to operate Bitcoin mining, and they are currently testing the whole process. Dirk Rudder already announced this at BTC Prague and talked about it in our Web3 World podcast. And here is the information about it. Welcome to the Crypto Owl. Exciting topic today, exciting news, and a message that is definitely, this stamp has always been associated with Bitcoin mining, but Deutsche Telekom does not want to participate in or support this stamp or these accusations. And I find the whole thing quite exciting because they clearly state here that Satoshi's vision was to establish a secure, decentralized system for global transfers that empowers individuals and makes the need for intermediaries obsolete. So, this is a very exciting topic, and we'll get into why they are doing it this way, whether it makes sense at all, and if it might also have negative aspects. Let's take a closer look at this. In any case, we will first go to the news, and we can clearly see that they are working with Bank Metzler because they obviously need someone to take the bitcoins off their hands. They don't just want to engage in Bitcoin mining, they want to profitably utilize their renewable surplus energy. Ultimately, you can feed it into a few cents, so let's take a look right away, because I have quite a bit to say about it. And overall, it doesn't really pay off. But of course, you can also make use of the whole thing. And yes, if we take a closer look, especially in Germany, I can tell you more about the energy system, or rather the energy grid as well. Yes, and the whole thing is being tested because then they can send the Bitcoin to Bank Metzler and they will transfer the euros or sell the whole thing to Bank Metzler. Bank Metzler could resell this to their customers saying, look, we have Bitcoin here, would you like to sell it? We can manage or even hold it for you. So overall, it's actually a win-win situation, but we also need to look at the negative points, of course. This announcement came out about 3 hours ago, and we can see what has been shared here, including who has been linked. There we already see all the major Bitcoin magazines and crypto magazines, the big influencers. So you can clearly see this message here. It is designed for everyone to notice, and the big influencers and social media people in the crypto and Bitcoin space are supposed to share it. Definitely. And that's how it looks. This is all from Telekom MMS. I have explained this before. They even follow us, or rather, they follow me as Crypto Euler, because we spoke with one of the executives, or rather one of the contacts there, Dirk Röder, and we also had a podcast with him. I can only recommend you to check it out. The podcast is really cool. Unfortunately, we were not allowed to talk about this topic at this time, but overall, there are some important themes. Yes, here is the big announcement, which a few more people have seen. Yes, very, very exciting. I also shared the whole thing, and it looks like this. Dirk Röder from Deutsche Telekom MMS announced it here at BTC Prague. Maybe you remember it was a big call back then. We can also take a look at it.
True story. I was interviewed for Deutsche Telekom in July 2022. They said, okay, you're taking over the Web3 infrastructure team. You're not allowed to use that word Bitcoin in this interview if you want to get hired. Since 2023, as Joe already said, we are running a Bitcoin node, and we are running Bitcoin Lightning nodes as well. And with a chest full of fucking pride, I like to let you in a little secret. We will engage in digital monetary photosynthesis soon. Thank you very much.
Dirk, come back. What does that mean in layman's terms? What is Deutsche Telekom, T-Mobile? What are you doing? What is that last phrase one more time?
Digital monetary photosynthesis.
So is T-Mobile mining Bitcoin?
We will.
You will, okay.
This we will has, of course, the effect that we now have the answer. They will really do it. And that was a really intense call. And it resonated with everyone. Bitcoin mining by Deutsche Telekom, the largest telecommunications provider in Europe. And Telekom MMS is essentially this subsidiary that is responsible for exactly such things. For example, they operate staking nodes. They are setting up a Lightning node. As mentioned earlier, a Bitcoin node, and so on. And now they have also initiated the whole topic of Bitcoin mining. Overall, this is extremely positive. Now one might think, look, they are using their surplus energy to engage in Bitcoin mining. That means they are making money from it, which is all well and good. However, they also need to sell Bitcoin. This means they could potentially drive down the price here. This is all very exciting, and let's take a look at it right away. If you want to buy cryptocurrencies, feel free to use Coinex. Coinex is a global cryptocurrency exchange, as stated here, with over 1,000 listed cryptocurrencies. You can easily deposit euros here through trading or third-party providers. When you select euros, you can also choose other currencies and withdraw in the same way, via Visa, MasterCard, Apple Pay, SEPA, banks, and so on. Everything is possible here. You can easily swap between over 1,000 cryptocurrencies here, which means it's like on a DEX, allowing you to exchange one cryptocurrency for another, or use your own exchange token, which gives you some bonuses. Be sure to check it out. We also have a separate video on that. You can take a lot from here and easily swap. At the same time, as you would naturally know, you can engage in sports trading here, with a limit and a market price, meaning you can simply buy from these over 1,000 cryptocurrencies. Then you can also engage in futures trading, as it is known, going long and short. There are not quite 1,000 cryptocurrencies available, but there are several. At the same time, there is also copy trading and many bonuses, for example, here exclusively for new users. If you are not there yet, there is a $100 newcomer promotion, and with the link in the video description respectively. In the pinned comment, there is cashback, on top of all the fees you pay here at Coinex. It's definitely worth it. Now, of course, the question arises, could this be negative for Bitcoin? If, of course, now Deutsche Telekom or MMS operates Bitcoin mining here using renewable surplus energy and will eventually earn Bitcoin when they find a block or join a pool and earn a little from it. Then, of course, the big question is, how do you handle Bitcoin? That's why they are working with banks. There is no further information on this yet. However, I can well imagine that it will be done OTC, meaning over the counter, so not through the chart, meaning they do not sell spot at any exchange, but they sell at a certain price, probably a few percent less or more. I don't know exactly, but I think it's more likely to be less at the current rate. And the whole thing is done over the counter, meaning that the banks give money to Deutsche Telekom, and Deutsche Telekom sends the Bitcoin there. And as I said, the banks can then offer this Bitcoin to their customers and sell it for money, probably even at a slightly higher price, plus custody fees. But that's how the business ultimately is. If one does not want to deal with it and prefers to manage it themselves, there is the option to do everything through banks in the future. We are hearing more and more banks are joining in, but they naturally charge fees for the custody of customers. So if you say you don't want to store it yourself, like with a hardware wallet, and you want to have your 24 words yourself, then it is understandable that the banks say, well, then there will be some fees. Then you have to accept the whole thing if you want to participate in this Bitcoin adoption and this journey of Bitcoin. But now the next question is, why is Deutsche Telekom doing this? And that is relatively simple. The same laws apply to Deutsche Telekom as they do to us, meaning for us private households that partially have a photovoltaic system. Depending on when you have installed it on the roof, you receive a certain amount in cents for feeding energy into the grid. This is not in euros, but rather a cent amount per kilowatt. Currently, my installation is not old yet, and there is a total of 8.3 cents per kilowatt. This means I receive 8.3 cents per kilowatt. And if I want to buy electricity for myself, I just looked up the current figures from my current electricity tariff. I am currently paying 30 cents. It's a lot. I know there are also cheaper providers, but I have a bonus on top that makes it worth it. In any case, my rate is 30 cents. Now, here's the big thing. I pay 30 cents when I need a kilowatt and consume electricity. Now I have a photovoltaic system on the roof, and I tell myself, look, if I produce well today, I feed it all into the grid and only get 8 cents for it. That's really not fair, you have to say. So there is a difference of 22 cents. Now, of course, I also have a neighbor who doesn't have photovoltaic panels. So he might even be paying 35 cents per kilowatt. And I have 5 kilowatt too much per day here. And yes, sure. Now one could say, watch out. Then just do Bitcoin mining for the 2 hours when the sun is shining. Because it's November, there isn't much sun left. Or go ahead and let the washing machine and then the tractor run. Well, we're already doing that. Plus, the storage will also be filled a bit. However, we still have 3 kilowatt too much. Now I could actually send this to my neighbor, and he would give me, let's say, 15 cents or let's say 20 cents. 15 might be a good deal. I still get more than if I feed the egg. He also has cheap electricity. Win-win. Yes. And that's exactly how it is with Deutsche Telekom, that they basically say, look, why should we continue to feed into the power grid here? And now let's be completely honest. For those who have looked into our German power grid a bit, especially in rural areas, you might occasionally hear, if you know a firefighter or if there was a fire incident, oh, who is burning again? You might think to yourself, but actually, if you ask the firefighter why you respond twice a week, he says, yes, we have. At least one transformer fire occurs every month. You know, those little transformer houses where a few cables go in, we all know them. They can sometimes burn out because our power grid, especially due to the feed-in from all the photovoltaic systems, which have naturally increased in private use, is experiencing falling prices. This means that it is actually worthwhile to invest right now. You no longer receive any subsidies or bonuses from the government, but the investments are currently extremely affordable. I also took the chance and said now or never. Sure, I could wait another 5 years and it might be even cheaper then, but I wouldn't get anything for feeding it in. That means it was just in a good balance and I said, now we have to strike. And that is exactly the big problem. One feeds all the electricity into the grid, or much more than before, and then our power grid is overloaded. This means that we not only have the advantage for Deutsche Telekom that they can say they are getting more for their surplus energy and not just feeding it into the grid, but we are also relieving our power grid. For example, there is the case of overloaded electricity or the power grid that simply has too much energy. Have you ever heard of night electricity? Large companies are offered nighttime electricity so that they can relieve the power grid at night. As it does not consume energy, then part of the energy is still fed in, or energy comes in through other channels. Back then, it was of course from the nuclear power plants, which continued to produce even at night. Yes, not much is consumed at night, so night electricity has been offered. They have some prices lower than day electricity, so the power grid is simply not overloaded at night when, as mentioned, little electricity is consumed. So that companies consider, look, if I have my employees working at night, I do pay them more due to the night shift allowance, but I get the electricity very cheaply. So this could almost create a balancing position. This means that the power grid has always been relieved by offering cheap electricity at night. No joke, feel free to Google it. And now, of course, the big question is, can this all harm Bitcoin itself? And that is a very exciting question because right now at this moment, tests are being conducted and they are doing it. So let's just let it happen. At some point, there will be experience reports and eventually other companies will come forward and say, look, how did it go? Was it good? I would like to do that too. Then it may be that more people or more companies engage in Bitcoin mining. This would make the entire network more decentralized and better distributed. This means more and more nodes distributed more decentralized around the world because perhaps the next company in France will say, look, they have the same thing. The largest telecommunications company in Europe, we will ask again, and then there are simply many more nodes. That is the advantage. So, our Bitcoin network, which is already considered the most decentralized network in the world, will become even more decentralized. So, it's a positive network. But now the big question is what will happen to the Bitcoin price? Because let's imagine maybe a large company, I don't know, Siemens or whatever, large German companies, but also European companies, might not have a bank as a partner directly. Here, of course, is the great advantage for Bank Metzler, which is mentioned as the first partner. Perhaps German companies could then also knock on the door and say, look, you're doing this for Deutsche Telekom, so do it for us as well. And then you get even more Bitcoin from us and we get your money and that works out, right? So it's also positive for the banks, I must say. However, it is also possible that the next larger company that engages in this may not find any banks and still wants to sell these Bitcoins profitably, meaning they might sell them all at once on the exchange. This means that the selling pressure could increase. Now, of course, the big question also from a regulatory perspective is which exchange they will choose. Also, the topic of fees. It's all a matter of accounting. It's a financial issue for them, but in the end, they probably still earn more than if they feed it back into the grid, depending on which tariff they have. If you have a very old tariff, if you were one of the first to have a PV system, there used to be over 30 cents. So it is still worthwhile to feed it completely into the grid. But at some point, this tariff will expire after a certain number of years. What will you do then? Once it has expired, you won't receive anything for feeding in energy. It is, of course, a big question whether the companies might have different tariffs here, as the amounts of electricity are naturally different. So, we have some reservations here. I'm only taking the number that one knows from private households and, of course, what one hears when asking around a bit. So, the whole topic is very, very exciting. That means we are decentralizing the network. In the specific case of Germany, the Rome network is being relieved. And in the specific case of Deutsche Telekom and Bank Metzler, Bitcoin is being sold OTC, and the bank could even sell the Bitcoins they receive profitably to their customers, plus custody fees. This means that currently it is essentially a win-win situation. But now the question is, this is an example, this is a suggestion, now others are following suit. How will the next ones do it? This means that the topic of Telekom sounds extremely positive. One question remains, and this question is very exciting because let's think back. What did Dirk say? Dirk, and I will just go back for a moment, mentioned something, namely this here. He spoke here of digital monetary photosynthesis. That means digital and monetized photosynthesis. On the right, the image is completely logical, we understand. On the left, the image poses a big question. Could it simply be that one says renewable energies? They are good for the environment. That's the left side of the picture. And on the right are the renewable energies that generate electricity. The electricity goes into Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin mining brings in money. All good. That's still a big question, this photosynthesis. Yes, of course, photosynthesis could also be referred to with solar panels or photovoltaic systems. So, there's still a question mark there. In my opinion, it could be that something might come up here, but only the future will show us. I couldn't squeeze much out of Dirk in the podcast or even in the off-the-record conversation. Otherwise, I might be able to hint at something here, but I really know nothing. That's why. It's all very exciting and for now extremely positive. I have explained the positive aspects here. I would love to hear your opinions on this. Write positively in the comments for all the points I mentioned. Do you have any more points in mind? Or do you perhaps say that if more companies come now and sell directly on an exchange, it will drive the price down? And if there are too many companies, our Bitcoin price will go down again? These are all questions that one naturally has for the future. On one hand, extremely positive for the future, extremely positive for the network. But yes, where is it all going and what are other companies that could potentially join in doing? We would love to hear your opinion on this. Remember our free Telegram group, where we also discuss such topics and many others. Feel free to join. You can find it in the video description. Remember to give this video a like and to comment. With that said, thank you very much for watching and see you in the next video.